I was living my life in the servitude of misunderstandings of people I love. Giving it all, it was never enough. Because of the fall, I could never get up. I moved on from their misunderstandings. I am no longer standing under them. I was drowning, now I swim. 'Cause I found the strength within. I don't need your absent friend. 'Cause I got this. 'Cause I got this, yeah. 'Cause I got this. 'Cause I got this, yeah. This is holy ground. Depraved and deprived, I was living your life. Lost in a moment with true sacrifice. Voices of plenty that never seem right. Visions, distractions that alter my sight. I moved on from their misunderstandings. I am no longer standing under them. I was drowning, now I swim. 'Cause I found the strength within. I don't need your absence, friend. 'Cause I got this, yeah. 'Cause I got this, yeah. 'Cause I got this, yeah. 'Cause I got this, yeah.
Welcome in, everybody, for another Wednesday conversation. I hope y'all are doing wonderful wherever you are. I hope you're having a wonderful day. We're going to have a really interesting conversation. If you haven't already, as you're coming in, make sure to like the video, share the video, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. What are you waiting on? Subscribe, get in here. All right, I don't have a lot of announcements today because I really do want to jump straight into this topic. I can see the chat is already live. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good day, or good evening, wherever you are. And if you're watching, later on, if you're watching the replay, hey, how you doing too? But yeah, we're going to have a good conversation today. Very interestingly, last week I received notification from a local news affiliate here that wanted to interview me about my role in the Entrepreneur of Impact competition, and I got to talk a little bit about the work that we do with DLDD World Group and the work that we do at Bridge City. Now, just to kind of clarify, because I think this is a great place to mention this, I spend so much time talking about Bridge City, which our mission is to help people connect better, build better, ultimately so that people can live better. That's really my goal. But that comes from a greater programmatic mission, if you will, and that's the work that I do at DLDD World Group that guides everything that I do on my channel and everything that I do outside of my channel, and that is to decrease harm and increase well-being, which is one of those things that kind of leads to these type of conversations, is because I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to, number one, be as vocal as I can be about ways that we can actually decrease harm. I don't highlight the ills of religion just because religion is wrong. I highlight the ills of religion because religion has proven itself to be harmful as it pertains to human psychology and human sociology. And so from my perspective, if harm is the problem, then I don't care what kind of wears the package. We got to call it out everywhere we see it. And then we also have to do better to build actual healthy systems. And so while today's conversation, I really want to kind of talk through some things that can all help us kind of recognize some of the red flags of a toxic community. Because let's be absolutely clear, religion does not have a monopoly on toxicity, right? Like we often talk about the good things that religion doesn't have a monopoly on. Religion does not have a monopoly on community. Religion does not have a monopoly on ritual or routine or rhythm. But it also doesn't have a monopoly on unhealthy paradigms. It also doesn't have a monopoly on transactional relationships. You don't have to be religious to be harmful, though we know that religion can be harmful. You can be absolutely free of religion and still be absolutely filled with toxicity. And it happens. So this is not going to be a beat up anybody conversation. Not today. That conversation may be coming. I don't know. But today we're just going to talk about the red flags. How are y'all doing? And don't forget, as you're coming in, let us know where you're watching from. You never know. You could be watching with somebody who's near you, and you may want to go get some coffee or something. All right. So are y'all ready to kind of jump into this? I told y'all I didn't have a lot of announcements. In my mind, one of the best ways to promote healthy community is to also be intentional about recognizing the traits of toxic community so that we can keep ourselves from recreating coercive cultures of control and conformity. This has been kind of big to me ever since I've entered the space. I've done my best to resist jumping on bandwagons. I've done my best to resist kind of just doing things because everybody else is doing. I try to avoid groupthink. I try to avoid tribalism, so much so that I was willing to pull away from certain shows because I saw certain ideologies, certain forms of groupthink being promoted. And I'm not the type to like, oh no, y'all are wrong. Let me do this, do this. I'm more the type like I think I might be in the wrong room. I think I might be at the wrong table. So much like it, and I've even had this conversation with my team. I even had to pivot some of my content because I said, okay, now what I don't want is I don't want people coming to me to find ways to be jackasses to the Christians in their lives. That's not healthy. If you're spending your time trying to beat up on Christians in your life, then I'm like, eesh, that's not a good pastime. I want to say some funny stuff because I got a dark comedic side, but I'm gonna try to lay off of it a little bit today so we can treat this topic with the seriousness that it deserves. And the goal is to find better ways to do community. So, are y'all ready to talk about the red flags of toxic community? And I will do my best to try to keep up with the chat. And since I'm saying that, I see we got Oregon in here. I see we got Lafayette, Indiana. Wow, really? One of our team members, our head of production, is in Hammond, Indiana. Good morning. Good morning. Oh man. Okay, so we've been active. All right. So let me kind of define a toxic community. And I really should have put this. And actually, I'm going to do that. If y'all will bear with me, I'm going to pull up the studio on my other laptop as well so that some of these I can share as notes because I want us to really look at this. Ocala's in the building. I'm in Alabama, Florida, so close to me. Make sure I don't pop on the screen in my other computer. I know I got to mute it. All right, so I do want to put trying to control others. Yeah, like that's definitely an issue for me. Okay, so I'm going to be trying to share a few of these notes on screen as we go through this. So we'll just have some reference points. And let me get to my little banners over here. Going to create a banner there and going to put it there. And I'm going to add that banner and then I'm going to click it and show it on the screen. Bam. All right, so the most base level definition of a toxic community that I can come up with is a toxic community is a social environment marked by persistent hostility, harassment, exclusion, and normalized aggression that devalues members and makes genuine participation feel unsafe. All right. It's on the screens. This is how I would define a toxic community. A toxic community is any social environment, religious or otherwise, secular or otherwise, any social environment where there is persistent hostility. I always get nervous when I'm watching people lead from bitterness instead of betterness, because for me, and I could be wrong, But when I see people operating in a whole lot of bitterness, it seems to allow them to excuse a whole lot of dehumanization, and that dehumanization normally comes through as hostility. But it's hostility, harassment, exclusion, and normalized aggression that devalues members and makes genuine participation feel unsafe. Now, just out of curiosity, I wonder, before we even get deeper into this, have any of you experienced that? And we're not going to try to trap this into one place or another. Have you experienced this in religion? Have you experienced this since you've left religion? Have you experienced this in the YouTube atheist space? Have you experienced this in your community? Are you experiencing this in certain political circles right now? A social environment marked by persistent hostility, harassment, exclusion, and normalized aggression that devalues members and makes genuine participation feel unsafe. It's not just a place where conflict happens. It's a place where harmful behavior is repeatedly tolerated, rewarded, or ignored. All right. So again, not just a place where conflict happens. Conflict is not the same thing as toxicity. As a matter of fact, what you will find in many toxic cultures and many toxic environments, it's conflict that can't be handled. Any community, oh man, this is good already. Any community that can't sit with the nuance of conflict, any community that cannot sit with the nuance of disagreeing opinions, any community that cannot sit with the nuance of disagreement, period. Any community that cannot sit with the discomfort of disappointment is likely headed towards a very toxic space. It's not a place just where conflict happens. It's a place where harmful behavior is tolerated, rewarded, or ignored. And I think some of y'all have heard me mention this before. I've brought it up in my videos. This is nothing new that I'm talking about. But if at any moment if you give yourself the excuse or the permission to dehumanize anybody for any reason, you are likely not a humanist. Tribalist for sure. Humanist, highly questionable. At some point, there has to be for us to truly be humanist. And, I don't want to fall on the true Scotsman's fallacy because that's, slippery slope there. Oh, another fallacy. But no, in order for us to be humanist, we have to be willing to draw the lines on how we treat other people, Most places, Jude, same way with me. Same way with me. It's one thing that I'm like I've learned to be very resistant of. Like I try to resist any form of forced conformity. I try to release any form of personality policing, and people don't like it. They think it makes me rude, and I'm like, no, it's rude for you to try to change me to fit your taste. Like that's rude, So some common markers of a toxic community include, and I'm gonna try to put these in here one by one as we kind of talk through them, because I feel like this is an important topic. So persistent hostility and bullying. All right. Persistent hostility and bullying. We'll just kind of talk through it, where you have the interactions are shaped by anger, ridicule, personal attacks, intimidation, or humiliation rather than honest disagreement or constructive dialogue. Now let's just talk through that just a little bit. How do you know when you're dealing with bullying versus honest disagreement? Watch this. Honest disagreement doesn't require humiliation. Constructive challenge never requires personal attacks. Honest disagreement does not require intimidation. So now if we are honestly disagreeing or if we are constructively criticizing, where does the need for anger, ridicule, personal attacks, intimidation, or humiliation come into play? At that moment, and watch, I'm not even saying that it's unwarranted. I'm not saying it's unsupported. I'm saying it's unhealthy. All right. There are plenty of things that we want to do. There are plenty of things that we feel like we need to do. There are plenty of things that we even feel like we should do. But I think one of the things that we should do, and it's definitely one of the things that I try to do, is ask myself, like, ooh, is this decreasing harm and increasing well-being, or is this doing the opposite? Because that's just one of my personal missions. You know what I'm saying? That's just one of my personal missions. Okay. So if it's an honest disagreement, there should always be made room for, right? And just to be absolutely clear, every disagreement doesn't matter, and that's something that I'll be honest, that has bothered me a little bit within this space. We've gotten to the place where we believe that every disagreement warrants an argument. And I think we've had that live conversation on this channel before to kind of discuss through the utility of agreement. Like, when is agreement absolutely required, and when is it not? Why do I have to agree with you on this particular thing? What changes substantially, what changes significantly in any of our lives if I do agree, and what changes if I don't agree? And if nothing changes from this agreement, then there's no utility in this agreement. And so we're actually just looking to have somebody to argue with, or even worse, we're just looking to have somebody to dehumanize, right? Because honest agreement, like if it's honest disagreement, I honestly disagree with a lot of people. I honestly disagree with a lot of people. I was sitting in a virtual meeting probably almost 2 years ago now, sitting in a virtual meeting with a group, and I won't call their names, but I had an honest disagreement with them. I had an honest disagreement with the way they approached the situation. I had an honest disagreement with the to kind of use a churchy word, the spirit that they were kind of operating in. I felt like they were operating in bitterness, and I felt like it would not be conducive to move forward in that relationship. Now, what I did not do after that is I found no need to be angry towards those people. I found no need to ridicule those people. I issued not one personal attack, nor intimidation, or used any form of humiliation. Why? Because the disagreement was honest, and that was good enough for me. No, I disagree because this does not work for me. Now, I don't have to attack you because you don't work for me. That's what honest disagreement looks like. Honest disagreement doesn't look like going along to get along. Honest disagreement is coming to the place of understanding the utility of the agreement. Dang, I'm talking better than y'all responding already. No. Whew, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I did say I'm gonna try to keep up with the chat. I've noticed the same thing. I see that. Man, people have different triggers. Sometimes humor can be taken personal, and that is so true. And seriousness can be overlooked. That is so true. All right. So things that we look for: persistent hostility, and bullying. These type of interactions. Like, okay, again, honest disagreement shouldn't require humiliation. Honest disagreement shouldn't require personal attacks. And so one of those red flags then is this persistent hostility. And this, when I first decided to start, being more public in my journey, I did have questions like, why aren't we being more effective in certain areas, right? Because I told y'all, like, when I deconverted back in 2014, of course I wanted to shout to the world. I wanted to go to every Christian I knew and knew and say, hey, everything you believe is a lie. You've been lied to, and all this jazz. But then where my mind went to is, okay, well, what happens after that though? Like, oh, if they don't have communities to support them. And when I say communities to support them, I'm not just talking about soft support. Soft support is lovely and it is absolutely necessary. I think Bridge City does a great job right now providing soft support, but the goal is to eventually be able to provide hard support. And what I mean, soft support is the ritual, it's the rhythm, it's the routine, it's having people to talk to, it's the emotional regulation, it's the psychological and sociological reorientation. This is soft support. It's very needed, just having someone to talk to, having groups that you can relate to. But hard support is, if my parents kick me out for no longer having this belief, whose bed do I sleep on tonight? Hard support is, if I lose my job and no one wants to hire me because they found out that I am now a non-believer, who can hire me and put my skills into place. Hard support is my ex is threatening to take my children because I don't believe, which I went through this. I had to go to court for 6 years, give or take, to fight to get my kids to demonstrate that as an atheist, I could still be a good father. Hard support is that, okay? I am in no way against greetings. Come on in. I am in no way against fighting the big battles, because we need those battles fought, and groups like Freedom from Religion do a wonderful job at that. But I became concerned because, like, oh dang, but who's taking care of the small things that impacts individuals who were asking to show up at our events, who were asking to support all of the things that we're doing, when we have very little support that actually goes back out to them in any type of tangible way. I begin to wonder, why is that so? If this community, and I have to say community with quotation marks because I am a community developer, and so because I am a community developer, I know how to look and say one of these things is not like the other, right? So I say, how have we existed this long as a community and we don't really have that hard support yet for the people, or we don't even have that type of insight or that understanding or that desire? And maybe it's because we're allowing persistent hostility and bullying to actually take the lead, okay? Which again, for me, that's a red flag of a toxic environment. Again, when the majority of our interactions are asking for the anger, it's asking for the ridicule. It's like, no, let's attack people. Let's talk about people. Let's label people. I've been labeled. Apparently, I'm a sexist pig, Wow, let's label people. Let's virtue signal anybody. Nothing can no longer be an honest disagreement. You have to be my humiliated enemy. That's a red flag for me. That's a red flag for me. Oh, I love that. Oh man. So yeah, that's a red flag. But then the other one, because we got a few to get through, is gatekeeping and exclusion. And in these type of spaces, which I saw this, I'm familiar with this one because it's very popular in the smaller churches. This is why I didn't stay in smaller churches very long. I actually went to an event like 2 years ago, and when I came back, I told my wife, I said, "Man, some of these spaces kind of operate like small churches, man." Like, and that was weird to me. But that's just my neurospicy and my comedy side. But gatekeeping and exclusion, where you have veteran or dominant members who act as cultural enforcers, making belonging feel conditional. So newcomers are mocked, tested, dismissed, or pressured to conform to unwritten rules, and like that. That's so much of a major red flag for me that it was one of the reasons that I shut down my Discord. We had a Discord. Discord grew like incredibly well, but it grew with people who were so used to being a part of a toxic culture that they could not stop themselves from being toxic towards each other. And what I mean by that is, like, everybody who joins now or who was joining had to follow some purity test that was so individualized, it just depended on who you were talking to. Well, so you end up getting into what I call like personality policing. So then everything somebody says is now up for debate. And I'm like, why is everything somebody else says why is that up for debate? Like, what is the utility of that debate? That's not healthy. If at any time you're listening to another human being express themselves, you feel like you have to be sitting there with a notebook. Nah, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. Listen, if these aren't about hard truths that are exposed in objective reality, I don't understand the utility of that. And so when we create cultures that are based in that type of toxicity, real relationships can't actually form. All of the relationships become parasocial. All of the relationships become more based in groupthink. Do we all agree? There were two call-in shows or two shows that I was a part of that I removed myself from because I started noticing the we language. language. And I was like, oh, I don't like the we language, especially if you've not talked to me about what you're saying we all agree on. Because in there's coded language there, right? And that's what I mean by people are pressured to conform to unwritten rules. It's like, well, we all think this. Whoa, we've not even had that conversation. That's a red flag. Because now what that means for me, now this is just how I think. You ain't got to think how I think. But for me, if you're saying we all agree and we've never even talked about this, then this is an expectation for we. And in order for me to be identified with we, it is an expectation that I have to be in a 100% agreement. That's gatekeeping and exclusion. All right. So again, veteran or dominant members, and I said I was going to put all these on the screens, but that's going to slow me down. And y'all are smart. Y'all can hear it. But it's where veteran or dominant members act as cultural enforcers. If you don't agree with the head honcho about specific things, then your belonging is conditional. Okay. But then there's also negativity without accountability, where poor behavior goes unchecked. Harmful patterns are minimized, excused, or selectively addressed depending on who is involved. See, and that's one thing as a skeptic that I'm always paying attention to. I don't want to say always because like I got no hint of perfection about me, but it's something that doesn't cease to amaze me is how we allow the standard to change from person to person, from situation to situation, from event to event. Now, so when one person does something, they're a label. When another person does something, they're being unjustly attacked. This is what I mean when I say negativity without accountability. Where poor behavior is going unchecked, harmful patterns are minimized, excused, or selectively addressed, depending on who is involved. Depending on who is involved. But then there's also relational aggression. So people use social dynamics as weapon. They do this through rumor spreading, reputation damage, ostracism, clique behavior, or subtle forms of emotional sabotage. Now, I think I'll be as transparent as I can without being 100% prepared to talk about this yet. But yesterday I dropped in on a stream it was in support of a content creator who's kind of, for lack of better words, not been in the space lately due to something that happened to them at an event. And it's not just something that happened to them at the event, but it was the way people treated them after the information kind of became public knowledge. And I was in the chat in the comments, and I just simply said, thank you for sharing this. This is a lot to sit with. And I guess people found out that I was in the chat and decided to send me an email disguised, in my good faith. It's protecting you. We're just sending you so that you don't get involved in a slander situation. I'm like, but I haven't slandered anybody. I just showed up in a suit in a chat. But what was interesting about this, and this letter is being or this email or whatever is apparently being supported by a lot of people in the atheist community, but it was 100% defamatory against a person who this person's only crime is that they experienced an event and reported it. And someone found out that I was in a chat that was talking about the event and then decided to try to threaten me and intimidate me. And then, like, yikes, the information they sent was defamatory and actually kind of indicative of the thing that the victim said happens. When I'm looking through the stuff that they sent, I'm like, wow, you've become so toxic that you don't even recognize that you're kind of stepping on your own toes here. Like my first thought was just to forward that whole thing to a lawyer. Oh, no, not a lawyer. Just forward it to the police. Just take it out of everybody's hands. And again, I'm going to try not to get into too much detail yet. But my concern right now is are we turning a blind eye to toxic behavior just because it's coming from people that we like? like I've been very clear on this. Like I've lost friends over this. I don't participate in dehumanization, period. Even if I agree with the reason someone is being ostracized, I'm just not going to get into it. But then when people are taking it a step further and sending me information about somebody's marriage, about somebody's private sex life, about sending me private chats and messages, and then there are several people in the atheist community who participated in this type of low, vile behavior and did it with a straight face and said, oh, we're protecting you from a slander suit, while people like Matt Dillahunty and Mandisa Thomas are slandering me everywhere they can find my videos. But you're trying to protect. Okay, yeah, no, that goes back to the one I mentioned earlier: negativity without accountability. Harmful patterns are minimized, excused, or selectively addressed depending on who is involved. Now, the thing is, if anybody was operating in good faith, they would have never sent me that damn email. And I'm sorry, that pisses me off. It does. It grinds my gears that somebody sent me somebody else's private information. That pisses me off and claim to do it. And we're just doing this because we care for the victim. And we care about you. Somebody that hasn't talked to me in over a year, somebody that has participated in spreading rumors about me is sending me an email to me, they just care about me. Nah, this is toxic. This is toxic. Okay. All right. Sorry. So relational aggression, where people use social dynamics as weapons through rumor spreading, reputation damage, ostracism, clique behavior. You want a great example of clique behavior? I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna leave it alone. See, cliques are easy to recognize if you're paying attention. When it's the same group that keeps getting invited, cliques are really easy to recognize when you're paying attention. Or subtle forms of emotional sabotage. I like that. People find importance in turmoil. That's so good. I'm gonna have to put that on the screen now. I'm going to have to put people who find importance in turmoil. It is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. And I'm afraid that we've cultivated that. And I want to believe that we've cultivated it in our ignorance. I want to believe that we've cultivated it accidentally, that we've cultivated this passively. But the more I see it, and the more, like, I've literally been ostracized for calling this stuff out before, which is why I don't care about calling it out, because I'm calling it out because it's wrong. I'm calling it out because it's not healthy. And I'm not just saying it's not healthy for the people that are being attacked. It's obviously not healthy for them, but it's not healthy for the people who are doing the attacking. It's not healthy for the people who are participating in behaviors like this. One of my biggest concerns after attending my first event space in this situation was looking around at how many people in the room were fucking broken. And I'm like, why isn't that something we care about? No, I get it. Religion, bad. No, I get it. MAGA, bad. But at what point do we shift from just being obsessed about the harm, that we actually shift over into trying to decrease the harm and actually increase the well-being of the people that we are most connected to? You know, that's where my mind goes. That's where my mind goes. So, relational aggression was that last one. The next one, lack of psychological safety. And for those of you who are just coming in, we're just talking about some red flags of toxic community. Lack of psychological safety, where members do not feel free to ask questions, express concern, disagree honestly, or show vulnerability without fear of backlash, humiliation, or exclusion. Okay? When you can be emailed an entire defamatory document just because you showed up in a stream, like not even on the stream, just in the chat, that means there is a concerted effort for people to preempt anybody who may draw a different conclusion than what a certain group of people are trying to promote. When people do not feel when people do not feel free to ask questions, that is a red flag. When people do not feel free to express concern that differentiates from the public talking point, that is a red flag. If people cannot disagree honestly, that is a red flag. If people can't show vulnerability without fear of backlash, humiliation, or exclusion, it's a red flag. It's a red flag. That's not, these are not signs of health. Okay. This is why, again, going back to this little, thing, I show up and I'm looking around, I'm like, man, why is everybody sick? Why is everybody sad? If we made the better choice, what's going on to where we're broken on this side? And like, to me, like, these are the same things that led me out of church, which is why I can't be a part of anything that's going to be repeating those processes. I left church because I didn't want to just look like I was helping. I wanted to actually help. So now I judge things by the measurable outcomes. And the measurable outcomes right now of the atheist YouTube community, yikes, it's cannibalism is what I see. Cannons to the left of them. Cannons to the right. It's cannibalism. Everybody's eating each other. Everybody's blowing each other up to pieces, destroying each other, not caring about the collateral damage. Lack of psychological safety. Man. It's a very interesting thing, right? Hidden drama and indirect communication. So instead of open dialogue, the culture becomes shaped by side conversations, whispers, back channel conflict, and what might be called meetings after meetings. Instead of talking about things openly, like release the Epstein files, isn't that what we've all been asking for? Release the Epstein files. But when it happens at NanoCon, we don't want to release those files then. Now, we don't need to release the files. We got to be concerned about, people's privacy and stuff. So, no. What happened to release the files? What happened to release the files? So instead of open dialogue, the culture becomes shaped by side conversations, sending people emails who you're afraid might support the victim. How is that not disgusting? If we found out a pastor was doing the same thing, if we found out that a local minister was accused of assault, and then anybody who showed up at any of those protests were emailed defamatory information about the victim, how would we not recognize that to be vile? These are the signs of a toxic community. Okay. Tolerance of hateful behavior. Sexism, racism, bigotry, cruelty, or dehumanizing speech are allowed to persist, whether openly or through silence and inaction. Not one person claiming, and this was something that I noticed in the beginning, and I've spoke on this before, and I think I opened this conversation up with it, is that I think we have to be careful when we're willing to dehumanize others, because we'll feel like, no, I got a really good reason to dehumanize this. I got a really good reason. And I'm like, my thing is, once you start giving yourself reason to dehumanize others, which is absolutely unnecessary, there's no power in it. It doesn't do anything for you. It's just like rage masturbation. It doesn't do anything for you. But once we start giving ourselves permission, once we start giving ourselves excuses to do so, then that moment any excuse will do. There'll always be an acceptable excuse to dehumanize someone else if you feel like it's acceptable to dehumanize someone else, which ultimately means that you feel that dehumanization is acceptable. You see the problem with that, right? So the thing is, that's not something I support. It's not something I promote. As a sociologist, I can sit with the nuance of understanding why people do it. I can see how we can all slip into it. But I'd hope that we'd start challenging ourselves to do better, you know, to do those things, to try to do only those things which are necessary and only those things which are effective. And most importantly, truthful. Like let's stay as truthful as possible. I remember, was it like early last year, people were really upset with me because I wouldn't jump on a dehumanizing bandwagon. And I'm like, that's just not who I am. Why would you try to make that requirement of me? I know I get that you're mad and that you see it that way, but my sociological background gives me a different way to see it. And I'm sure your lived experience gives you a different way to see it as well. And if I can give you grace to be that, why can't I get grace to do the same thing? And so when we go down that slippery slope, ultimately what we're creating is a place where hateful behavior is tolerated as long as it's aimed at the right target. Okay? Oh, that's good. Uphold the truth starting with yourself. This is so good. I was dehumanized by pastors because my background was a slightly different version of their nonsense. Absolutely right. Yes. For me, like as the Pentecostal, the charismatic, I was definitely dehumanized. Oh, you one of them crazy ones, huh? You know, but no, it's we have to stay away from the tolerance of just that hateful behavior. It's not necessary. How dare a community continues to quote my ancestors like Dr. Martin Luther King while ignoring their words? So no, we just love people like Dr. King. Tell that bullshit to somebody else, because I don't see it. I don't see it. Where it's at? Where is it? Where is it? Oh no, this is I like this. Captain, that's too good. Wolves in shepherd's clothing, you know. But no, like we tolerate sexist speech when when it's aimed at the person we don't like. We tolerate racism when it's aimed at the person we don't like. We tolerate bigotry when it's aimed at the people we don't like. We tolerate cruelty when it's aimed at the people we don't like. We don't just tolerate it, we praise it, we share it. That is not a sign of a healthy community, nor is that a sign of a healthy adjustment to reality. Toxicity is not just dangerous because it harms others, it's dangerous because it harms us all. It makes it more difficult for us to relate as a species. It spreads like a cancer. Toxicity is a wonderful weapon to get you to hate people that you don't even know. Mm. Love you, my friend. Uh, love you, sir. Like these are tough conversations. Another one and is low morale and emotional exhaustion. And this is one that often flies under the radar, but this was the one that first kind of tipped me off 2 years ago when I'm at this first event. Which, notice what I'm not doing here. I'm not telling you what that first event is. I'm not trying to diagnose why it was what it was. I'm simply saying I saw something that made me say, ooh, we might not be doing enough. All right. And that's how I think. Now, when I walk into a room and it's us and it's our team and we're the ones struggling, I'm not saying what can we get the other team to stop doing. That's not good coaching. That's not good coaching. Good coaching, you don't go into the locker room after you've lost a game and say, now what the other team needs to do is, And I'm kind of concerned because I do see like the majority of the conversation in the secular space right now is what non-secular people need to be doing. And my challenge is like, hey, you got no control over them. What do secular people need to be doing? That's our team. That's who we need to be coaching. It seems like too many Christians deconstruct the fairy tales but forget to change the behavior that only makes sense in those fairy tales. Jude, that is a whole word. That is yeah. I almost started speaking in tongues, y'all. Almost. But no. But this one flies under the radar, but this is absolutely a red flag of toxicity. This is absolutely a red flag of a toxic culture. As a matter of fact, if when you begin to see this, the toxicity at that moment is likely so rampant that the culture itself doesn't have the ability to spark life. It only has the ability to spark outrage. And that's low morale and emotional exhaustion, where people feel drained, anxious, alienated, hyper vigilant, are emotionally worn down by the environment rather than by strengthened by it. And this is why the the whole culture starts getting more attracted to rage bait than actual helpful information, because you're so emotionally drained, you're so emotionally exhausted that help is no longer what you're looking for anymore. You're looking for more things to fuel the hate. You're looking for more things to be angry about. You're looking for more things to cry about so you can feel better about crying. You're looking for more people to attack, which makes it easier when all of these other red flags are going off. It makes it easier for you to fall victim to it. It makes it easier for you to believe the rumors. It makes it easy for you to hear the dog whistles. It makes it easy for you to respond to the rage bait because you are too exhausted, too alienated, too anxious, too drained, too emotionally worn down by the environment that you can no longer responsibly respond to the world that you're living in. And maybe even responsibly, may I add. Oh wow! Thank you for saying that. The anger and hate consumed me for years. This channel helped restore my sanity. One lesson that I had to learn this the hard way. I told y'all, like, I went through my Black nationalist days. You know, at one point, for all my white brothers and sisters watching, you was the devil for me. you know. But no, like, I went through that phase of just being angry and being upset and trying to figure out how do I get out of this. And at some point I had to realize, like, dude, you're actually feeding yourself the anger. Like, I stayed glued in front of the news, waiting for another Black body to be shot. I'm searching through YouTube, looking for more Black bodies. At that moment, I'm feeding myself trauma porn. And I'm afraid that in many cases, not all, but in many cases in this culture, we're like building entire empires off of trauma porn. That's not healthy. Hey, throw some in there. Yes, sprinkle some in there if you want to. Fine. But damn it, we need a healthy, balanced diet. And right now we're not getting that. And then even when others try to show up, and it hasn't just been me, when others try to show up, I think Britt Hartley did a great video on this. When others try to show up and try to offer some of that dietary balance, that, hey, I know you got your rage bait red meat over there. You got your rage bait red meat, and red meat is okay. Get you some red meat every now and then. These are not healthcare advice. Don't listen to me about healthcare, okay? But get you some rage bait red meat every now and then. But you're also gonna need to get you some vegetables, man. You're also gonna need some iron. You're gonna need some fiber in your diet, okay? And what we begin to increasingly see in this space is that if you don't align with my rage, then you're a problem, and that's a problem. That in itself is a red flag. At least I'm a cute devil, right? Absolutely. Yes. Oh, I missed this. Let me get it. What do you think the solution is to help secular people with religion political divide? I don't think the dehumanizing cancel approach works. That is a heavy one, and like, thank you for asking that because it's real. One of the things that I kind of encourage people to do, and again, this is something that I've had to do myself. That I've had to do myself is just not letting. Okay, here it is. Okay, nope, I know exactly where we're going. I think I'm okay. Okay, so number one, yes, not letting what I see on TV define what I think I know about anybody. All right. So one thing that I do try to encourage people to do, like, hey, I know you see a lot of stuff on the news right now. Instead of you forming your opinions about humanity based off of media, which I mean, when you say it out loud, that should make you think like, oh damn, I shouldn't be doing that. That's not an exercise in intelligence. Actually start forming your opinions about people based off people you actually know. You know what do young kids say nowadays? Go outside and touch grass. You know, and no, it's like go outside and talk to somebody, talk to a real person, talk to somebody that you can verify is not a bot. Talk to somebody that you can verify is not a paid actor. Talk to somebody that you can verify is not just repeating a script. I've shared this with our Sunday sessions crew before, but I used to give my kids this little exercise, and I'm actually going to do a video about it. It'll be about the problem of God, about naming things versus knowing things. But I think this fits very well here. Is that what I'll have my kids do? Is I'll point to something like a rug in the house, and I'll say, "Tell me what that is." And they'll say, "Oh, it's a rug, it's a carpet." And I'm like, "No, that's what we call it. That's not what it is. That's what we label it. That's not what it is." And we can sometimes get so caught up on our or caught up in our labels for things that we forget that behind that label is a real entity that is much more complicated than the label we've attributed to it, right? So if you just say, well, Darante is a black man, you don't know shit about Darante. All you know is one thing. You've named something, but you still don't know it. And so in the same type of ways, you don't know anybody that you don't know. And just like, I know this is going to be a hard pill to swallow. Anytime you're trying to force everybody to agree with you just because you think your way is right, I have a hard time not seeing that as fascism. Anytime we're looking at anybody and say, if you don't do what I do, if you don't vote like I vote, if you don't hold my values, then you don't deserve to exist or you need to be canceled. Or, like, how are you not a fascist at that moment? And so I'm not here for it. Now, I'm not going to tell anybody else you're a bad person for feeling that way. But if you try to tell me that I'm a bad person for not following that toxicity, what I identify as toxicity, then you're kind of proving the point. That where you're basically saying, well, anybody who doesn't agree with me, doesn't deserve life. And it's just like, wow, that's a weird stance for a humanist to take. And it's even more so a weird stance for anybody who understands the complexity of the world that we live in. And I get it. I may be I may be biased towards my own strengths here, right? Because my background is sociology. So the one thing that getting out of religion like really helped deliver me from is this idea of a perfect world state. I don't believe in such thing. In my mind, everybody has their own lived experience and has been impacted by this world in very different ways. And I don't know enough about anybody that I don't know to understand the reasons why they came to their conclusions. And just to give a nice little historical fact, the people who have done the most work into bridge racial gaps were the people who were willing to cross the damn aisle. You know, there was a man years ago. I didn't agree with the approach. I didn't, but I couldn't hate on him because it worked. Would I do it? Probably not. Probably not. But there was a man that ended up convincing several KKK folks to give up their KKKing. Is that how you say that? You know, and he did it by befriending several of them over and over again. Now, don't you dare praise my communities for its victories, but then won't use the damn blueprints. You like to use the names, but you won't use the blueprints. You know, and a lot of times, I'm be honest with y'all, be very careful when people are like saying they doing stuff for black people. Like, check the history, because I'd be like, hey, these people don't know what they doing. Right? Yes, man. Daryl Davis. Yeah, that's him. How do we try to befriend people like Daryl Davis did with people in KKK? He helped lead over 200 men out of the KKK. You see, like, and that's real. That's real history. That's nobody making that up to fit a narrative. That's real history. And as humanists, we have to realize everybody's not going to share our worldview. That's the reality. That's the reality. But at the moment you begin to say, well, anybody who doesn't share my worldview just deserves to economically suffer or deserves this, and it's like you're just them at that moment. Oh man, I'm sorry, y'all. So like the deeper issue is not the deeper issue is that a toxic community doesn't just contain bad behavior. It develops a culture in which bad behavior becomes normal. In this community, calling people names that you disagree with is normal. And it's only a problem when they're talking about your friend. See, as long as the person that's being called names is not your friend, it's no problem. But I have stood on business 10 toes down like 4 flats on a Cadillac. I've stood on business since day one and says, I'm not dehumanizing anyone for any reason, period. The worst you're going to get from me is fuck off and leave me the fuck alone. See, that's not dehumanizing. No, fuck off. No, that's the worst you're going to get from me. And that ain't even because I love you so much. That's because I love me. Why am I about to be frustrated over a stranger? See, that's not healthy. If you're out here going to town trying to spread rumors about people you do not know, I personally would consider that you're probably not doing well adjusting to adulthood. And that's a concern for me. I'm not just saying that as a slur or a swipe at anybody. That's a legitimate concern for me. Because like how do we ever expect the tide to change? How do we ever expect to get the upper ground if we can't even adjust to adulthood? If we're still out here doing high school shit. You know? People who I don't agree with, I don't go in their chats. But you got a whole community who trolls people that they don't like. You know? Like I remember sitting in one show. I won't say the name of the show, but one of the co-hosts was bragging about trolling Christians. And I was like, how is that healthy? How is that a flex? Like, you got that much time? That's what I consider privilege. That's privilege out of this world. I ain't got that kind of privilege to be trolling nobody. Oh, man. Oh, dang, I hope this whole one shows up because I like this. I love the concept of relational politics when I learned about it. We can only influence the people, come on, who have a connection to us. The best we can try to do is to convince, now I'm going to have to look over here. The best we can do is to convince the people who care about us. Absolutely right. You start there, you know? You start there. I did a video about this like a year and a half ago called leapfrogging, because that was my concern. I'm like, man, you're jumping over a lot of issues that you could actually have impact on to yell about issues that you have no ability to impact on. You want to change Republicans? Start with the Republicans in your life, man. And, calling them hateful things is probably not going to be the thing. I mean, if you just learn the basics about human psychology, just the basics about human psychology, calling people's name, dehumanizing people, and using hateful rhetoric towards people normally does not make them want to be your friend. Okay? I know negging was a popular thing in the dating world for a while, but it didn't work. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So it's deeper than just bad behaviors. It's the problem becomes where culture is where bad behavior becomes normal. We jump on it. See, once that happens, people start adapting themselves to survive the environment instead of helping shape it into something better. And then anybody who dares say, hey, this could be better becomes the problem. Instead of the problems being the problem, the desire to be better becomes the problem. And this is normally the real test, you know? Yes, or even worse, celebrate it. Celebrate it. I knew that was coming, Dark Light. Um, when people have to become quieter, harder, more guarded, more performative, or less honest in order to remain in the group, the culture is already unhealthy. You know? I was invited to speak at an event last year. I shared the flyer on my page. Some people who I would consider toxic elements of the community posted on the page due to the lack of diversity at the that was going to be at the event. Apparently, I was going to be the only black man or black person at the event, and some people were upset. And instead of being upset at the organizers, they decided to be upset at the one black person who was actually invited. And I thought that was odd. I said, okay, no, if this is in good faith, if this is genuine, why not bring this conversation up with the organizers when you obviously know who the organizers were because they uninvited your leader, a few years before. So why would you skip the organizer and try to force the issue on my page? To which I asked, hey, can you please not have these conversations on my page, please? That's not what my personal Facebook profile is for. Oh man, they got mad at me. Well, why can't we talk about it here? The fact that I even have to answer the question is a red flag of toxicity. The fact that I said, hey, please don't do this on my space, and your next answer was why? See, let's put that in context. How is that not rapey? Hey, can you please not put your hand on my leg? Why can't I put my hand on your leg? Okay. Hui. A healthy community is not one without tension. As long as we're going to be dealing with each other, we need to be prepared to deal with people that we disagree with. If you're not prepared to deal with people that you disagree with, I challenge your humanism. If your humanism stops at the boundaries of agreement, then you're not really different than a Christian. Then your goal is like, no, my love is not universally applied. My love is only for my neighbor. My love is only for those who look like me. My love is only for those who act like me. My love is only for those who tolerate my bullshit and nobody else's bullshit. I'm preaching better than y'all responding, you know? So a healthy community is not one without tension. It's one where people can experience tension without being devalued. Like, yeah, ooh, I disagree with that. I don't have to devalue you to disagree with you. I don't have to dehumanize you to disagree with you. You know? So a community is not defined merely by what it says it values, but by what it consistently permits, rewards, corrects, and reproduces. And that's what I look at. I learned a very tough lesson roughly 2 years, a year and a half after I deconverted. A pastoral colleague friend of mine brought me onto his staff, and within weeks of being there, I discovered that he was involved in at least two extramarital affairs with the wives of men who were leaders in his church. And I was just like overwhelmed because I'm like, oh snap. Oh snap. Like what's going on? What's going on here? And it was a whirlwind of a situation. And I felt really responsible, like, for the whole situation. And I'm trying to find ways to navigate it. I'm trying to help him to make better decisions. I'm trying to help the women find ways to deal with this with their families, because the information is all coming up. And then at one point I realized, oh, this is a cycle for this particular group of people. This isn't the first time this has happened, and it's likely not going to be the last time. And it wasn't. It wasn't. And this is a cycle for these people. There it is. Not my circus. Man, I got to platform that has to go up. That has to go up. Not my circus. Not my clowns. I realized, like, no, this is a cycle for them. And my only true responsibility is to separate myself from that cycle, you know? And so that's what I did, because what I started paying attention to is, like, not just what's happening, but how often does this happen? How often do we have someone to yell at? How often do we have someone to dehumanize? How often do we have something to cover up? How often do we have something to ignore? How often do we have something to slide under the carpet? How often does this happen? And at some point, when it's happening that often, then it's a normative part of the culture. So this isn't just a one-off thing. This is normalized toxicity, you know? Oh, yes, like Alice tumbling through the looking glass. So let's kind of do, like, a little bit of contrast, and then I got to get ready to go. It's senior day at my oldest son's school, so I'm going to go and be a proud parent and watch the slideshows and the presentations and the awards and all that good stuff. But in a toxic community, conflict becomes personal, hostile, humiliating, or retaliatory. That's toxic, all right? But in a healthy community, conflict can be direct, it can be honest, and it can actually be respectful without dehumanizing people. If you can't do conflict without dehumanization, you likely need to spend some time with a therapist. And I don't mean that as a slight. I mean that as probably the most significant advice I could ever give. If you cannot handle conflict without dehumanizing people, you likely need to see a therapist before your harm outpaces your words. Okay? In a toxic system, belonging feels conditional, it feels fragile, and is controlled by insiders. In a healthy system, belonging is clear, accessible, and not dependent on performative loyalty. It's one of the things I love about Bridge City. Belonging is at the discretion of the member, not the leadership, you know? I think it's very important that communities like yours exist, so there isn't a monopoly of certain priests, come on now, of what it means to be a human who separated themselves from their old belief systems. I love that. Thank you, Derek. My husband is afraid to share the story of how we left the parish where we met because it sounds so close to a soap opera script. He's worried people will think it's fake. Hey, welcome to my life, right? Oh, man. Been in counseling for years. It's helped make me a better person. That is absolutely beautiful. I'm loving that we're seeing counseling more normalized. And that's a dot. I'll take it. I'll take it. But yeah, in a toxic community, newcomers are tested. Like we don't have any test. Well, okay, let me be clear. There are some tests, but they're like knowledge checks, and you can't fail them. So we do have tests at Bridge City. They're technically tests, but they're absolutely optional. But like some spaces you join, and it's like we want to make sure you're atheist enough, or we want to make sure you're left enough, or we want to make sure you're conservative enough, or we want to make sure you're this. And at those moments, you're no longer building a community. You could be building a club, you know. but you're not building a community. And I'm not saying clubs are necessarily bad, but we shouldn't be building private clubs using the language of community. If what you're trying to build is a club that exists for a very specific thing, then call it that. You know, that this is a club, this is an association. We're here just for this, you know, but let's not use the broader labels of atheist community if it's not a community for atheists. Oh, this is good. And if you even notice, like with Bridge City, we do our best not to market Bridge City as a community just for atheists, but as a community for people, period. I'm an atheist, but my concern for humanity doesn't stop at the people who share my label. There are believers out there who are also looking for community, that they don't want to be in a community that gets to define what they believe or how they view the world. There are some people who want to hold on to their imaginary friend without forcing their imaginary friend on anybody else. There are some people who want to there are some people who absolutely identify as some form of believer that would love to be a part of a community that wasn't predicated on belief. And the thing is, there's no believer that's going to create that system. So that's our opportunity. And it's also our leverage. It's also our leverage. House music club. You know what? I would not be mad at a house music club. Drama club. Yes. Jalapeno. So in a toxic community, newcomers are tested, ignored, mocked, or gatekept. You're not enough like us. All right. So I'm Dark Light. If you don't mind, I'm going to use you as an example, because you've become so well known all over the YouTube space, you know. But Dark Light he's a member of our community. He's been following me for like maybe over a year, at least since I was on one of those shows. Did I just freeze up on y'all? Let me check my other camera, because I feel like I just froze up, and I did freeze up. Let me see what's going on. Okay, I'm back. But Dark Light is a member of our community, and you know, Dark Light, he always describes himself as you know, he has imaginary friends, and you can't take them away from him, and he's pretty clear on that. He's been a member of our community for a while, and not one time do we say, hey, like, you're not atheist enough to be here, you know, because that's not what we're gathered around. You know? And that's always the biggest question that I often get from atheists is, how do we build communities for atheists that is just based, you know, when the only thing we have in common is atheism? I'm like, that's not the only thing we have in common. There's something a little more important than just our non-belief that every fucking atheist has in common, and that is our damn humanity. And it's not just something that we have in common with one another as atheists, it's something that we have in common with every fucking individual on this planet. And if that's not big enough to gather around, I don't know what to tell you. So Dark Light is absolutely welcome in our community, not because he's an atheist, not because he has the right label, not because he says the right thing. He's welcome in our community because he's a fucking human being. You know? I'm sorry. So we don't have this situation where we're gatekeeping people to make sure that you're the right fit. Like, I get nervous with stuff like that. I get nervous with stuff because watch this. Nobody else owes me their lived experience. Nobody. You know? Contrary to popular belief, I'm not out here trying to change Christians' minds. And if you pay attention to my content, that should be kind of clear. I create content for people who are ready to change their own minds. Jalapeno. So in a toxic community, newcomers are tested, ignored, mocked, or gatekept. In a healthy community, newcomers are oriented, welcomed, and given a clear path to participate. You know, in a toxic community, power is hidden, inconsistent, click-based, or protected. One of the most interesting things that I've experienced over the past 2 years, because I've watched several people in this community attack several other different people in this community, including myself. And I won't put everybody else's business out there because I don't do that. I can't tell everybody else's story. unless they give me permission to, but I can tell mine. And so I've had people attack me. I had seen them attack others before then. I've seen them. The email that I just recently got was them attacking somebody else. And in all of these cases, it's been one fucking couple behind every single one of them. That's what I mean, click-based. You mean to tell me that you can have over 5 different incidences where the secular community gets riled up to attack and dehumanize another person in the secular community, and there's always one couple behind all of them, and that don't raise no red flags for nobody? I had to cut off a friendship. Okay, I had a friendship. There's a certain person that I'd had on my channel. I had to cut him off as a friend because he confessed to me that he was afraid of that couple. And as a black man in the South, I can't have cowards as friends. I can respect what you need to protect. But what that also shows me is that when they come to lynch me, if you won't protect yourself, you damn sure won't protect me. So I can't be friends with you. I won't dehumanize you. I won't talk about you. I've never spoken negatively about them, but you cannot be my friend. Not if you can tell me flat foot that, hey, these people are vile and they attack anybody that they can. And I'm afraid to say anything against them because I might lose this upcoming that I have. Which the person who was allegedly assaulted, trusted that same couple. You know? And it's that same couple that has led this slander campaign against them. So I don't have to get up here and cry about me. It's happening to other people. I'm a black man in this country. I've experienced hate my whole damn life. I've lived in the Wiregrass, southeastern Alabama my whole life, with a few exceptions. So I'm used to, like, please, y'all take this in love. I just typically call it white peopling. That's what I used to call it, you know? But no. Juice. Oh, now I want the tasty gossip. I won't pry though, but the curiosity is tempting. I know it. So in a toxic culture, power is hidden, always operating behind the scenes, inconsistent, click-based, where almost every time something is happening, you can find the same group of people operating together. In a healthy culture, power is named, it is accountable, and exercised with clarity and responsibility. Not just how does this feel, but how does this help? And we got a whole lot of people in this community that are doing things that feel good to them, but isn't helping anybody. You know? That has to matter. Are we decreasing harm, or are we causing harm? Are we increasing well-being? Are we just leaving things at the status quo just so we can have something to talk about in our content? Ooh, yes. You know what? This needs to be on a t-shirt. The heresy hunting priest. If you don't fit it, if you don't see it, if you don't do things exactly the way that I do, like, no, a major part of secularism is pluralism. Like, what the heck? All right. Accountability. In a toxic community, harm is minimized, excused, or selectively addressed. When I reached out to someone and told them, hey, I do not know what problem you and your wife have with me, but if y'all could please keep it off my Facebook page, because that's not how I do things, that would be greatly appreciated. Please have that fucking conversation. And it becomes, hey, he's a sexist pig. That's what I get told. That's what I get told. But someone else gets accused of throwing a woman down the fucking stairs. And he's platformed on almost everybody's channel by the same people who are calling me a sexist pig. That's what I mean when I say harm is minimized, excused, or selectively addressed. A black man tells somebody to fuck off and keep your bullshit off of his page, and he is a sexist. A white man is accused of throwing a woman down the stairs and sexually assaulting her, and he's the secular Jesus. I didn't mean to say this much. I'm sorry. In a healthy community, harm is acknowledged, addressed fairly, and taken seriously regardless of the status. Regardless of the status of the person. In a toxic community, rumors, side conversations, passive aggression, and meetings after meetings shape the culture. In a healthy community, communication is increasingly direct, transparent, and oriented toward clarity and repair. Anytime somebody shows up to you with the bone, ask the person who's bringing you the rumor, how are you trying to repair it? And if they can't answer that, even if they can, the next question is, what role do you expect me to play in the repair? Because if you're not trying to repair it and you have no expectation of me to play a role in repair, then what is the actual reason that you'd be bringing this information to me? In a toxic community, disagreement is treated like betrayal or disrespect. In a healthy community, disagreement is treated like a normal part of thinking, learning, and relating. It is absolutely superstitious to think that everybody is going to see the world the way that you do. You are still trapped in your religious bubble if that's what you think. Well, they should be seeing the same things I'm seeing. Ain't nobody seeing the same things you're seeing. Nobody's watching the same channels you're watching. Nobody's following the same social media profiles you're following. Nobody is living in your fucking shadow. So for you not to be just aware enough that the people who share this planet with you are not sharing the same experience with you, it's not a flex, nor is it helpful. At that moment, it's like, okay, you go sit at the kiddies' tables because the grown folks is talking right now. In a toxic community, fear, anxiety, tension, hypervigilance, and exhaustion dominate the atmosphere. In a healthy community, people generally feel safe enough to participate honestly without constant self-protection. One of the things that I love about my community, and I'm going to stop calling it my community because it's not mine, it's our community. But one thing that I love about our community is no one feels the pressure to agree with me. Number one, I don't typically hold up my beliefs as anything for anybody else to emulate. One thing I've been very clear about since I first started my channel and started doing stuff, like I'm not anybody's hero. Like, don't put me on a pedestal. I will kick that motherfucker down. Okay? Because that's not what this is for. So like nobody in the community feels pressured to show up to all of our Sunday sessions. Nobody feels pressured to like all of our music. As a matter of fact, if they don't like the music, they'll be like, oh, that kind of sucks to me. And I'd be like, that's not surprising. That's why we have several different genres. Now, I'm a little different because I'm an artist and I like all genres. I do. I just love music. I can't help it. Even if it's music I don't even understand, I'm like, damn, I'm feeling that. You know, I like all genres, but I know that there are other people who only like their genres. You know? And the beauty of that is, like, the last song we had for our Sunday sessions is heavy metal rock. And like, I could have wrote something close to it, but nothing as good as it. But we have a member in our community who was like, hey, I appreciate what Darante is doing with the church sound and stuff and some of the hip hop sound and stuff and some of the R&B sound and stuff. But hey, man, we need some metal flair in here. That's how you give other people the freedom to be themselves, by not trying to create a monoculture where we all have to like the same things, eat the same things. Like, listen, if we all eat the same things, there ain't gonna never be no leftovers. You know what I'm saying? The happiest days in my life as a former chubby kid is when somebody ordered something and there was something on it they didn't like. Oh, I'll take that for you. I'll take that right off your plate, I will. But that's kind of like community, you know? But see, I learned that like back in my pastoring days, man. Like, everybody who came to church wasn't coming for my preaching. Some people were just coming because we had childcare. Some people would come for the music and then leave. And other people wouldn't show up until the music was over, because we all have different fucking preferences and different likes. And please don't tell me the church is doing a better job at understanding that than the secular community is. Okay? Yeah, people in a healthy community, people generally feel safe enough to participate honestly. Which means, hey, I don't like this part. That's fine. Doesn't that feel freeing? For you to be able to say, hey, I don't like that. And no one says, well, you better like it. In a toxic community, leaders protect image, allies, and control. In a healthy community, leaders protect people. Leaders protect truth, and leaders protect process. Okay? In a toxic community, rules are arbitrary. The friend that I had to cut off, because they admitted to me that they were a coward, and I still love them. If they ever stopped being a coward, I'd be like, man, we can be friends again, But that's the one thing that they were kind of shocked by, is that so the rules are not really the rules. So certain people can do these things and it's not considered the bad thing. But if the person who you do not like at this moment is doing this thing, then it's the bad thing. Rules are arbitrary, inconsistently enforced, or they are weaponized. But in a healthy community, standards are clear and they are across the board. They are understandable and they're applied with consistency. I love y'all, man. In a toxic community, social positioning matters more than truth. In a healthy community, integrity matters more than social leverage. And I'm going to do my best to model integrity as much as I can. Integrity has to matter more than social leverage. It has to. But I can tell you what I've seen. I've seen some of your favorite YouTube creators leveraging social leverage to get people to operate out of their integrity. And that's frightening to me. In a healthy community, in a toxic community rather, cliques, exclusion, emotional sabotage, and reputation damage are common. How many people in this community's reputation have been damaged? Pay attention to that, because that's not a sign of health. If people cannot dissent without damage, there it is. If people cannot dissent without damage, if people cannot dissent without damage, that's not a sign of a healthy community. In a healthy community, relationships are shaped by goodwill, boundaries, honesty, and mutual respect. Whew. Come on now. I gotta, to quote DMX, trust a snake to be a snake and a dog to be a dog. Know them and trust them to be themselves. Whew, that's heavy. Bars. In a toxic community, people self-censor to avoid backlash, shame, or exposure. And that's what my friend was doing. He was self-censoring because he didn't want the backlash. He didn't want the shame, and he didn't want the exposure. But to be well adjusted to a sick culture is no sign of health. Thank you, my friend Joe Pittenger, for that quote. To be well adjusted to a sick culture is no sign of health. None at all. Okay? If people are having to self-censor themselves, if a person experiences something that is as vile as a physical assault and feels the need to self-censor to avoid backlash, to avoid shame, and to avoid exposure, then those feelings are not imaginary, and we now have the history to know that those feelings were valid. We just didn't have the strength, the awareness, or the wherewithal to recognize that those were not internal. She had properly read the external flags. She had properly read the external red flags of this community and felt the need to know, I need to try to protect them, or this is going to turn back on me. And this is not unique in the secular community, which is why this bothers me to such a great degree, because we have no problem calling it out when the Republicans are doing it. We have no problem calling it out when MAGA is doing it. We have no problem calling it out when the Christians are doing it. But when it's happening in a community that we call our own, well, I actually like those people, so I don't want to say anything about that. You don't have to attack anyone to speak up for somebody. And I hope I'm doing a good job of demonstrating that now. In a healthy community, people can ask questions, they can disagree, and they can contribute without being socially punished. In a toxic community, the community protects itself from embarrassment more than it protects harmed people. Okay? In a toxic community, the community protects itself from embarrassment more than it protects harmed people. Well, this might look bad on us. Then it should. It should. Who the fuck are you where something shouldn't look bad that is bad? No, if something is bad, it should look bad. You may not have seen it coming, and there could be grace for that. But after the fact, to try to protect yourself from embarrassment more than the harmed person, to actually go out of the way, it's one thing not to believe the victim, but to be simultaneously tearing the victim down while promoting the accused, that is an absolute betrayal of justice. To go into a mass email campaign where you're literally shaming a woman for sexual proclivities that she shared in private. Shame on you. This is not a community. Not you mean to tell me you were able to get 20 people in this community on that same damn bandwagon? Clout chasing? I call it weaponized loyalty. But clout chasing, that's what it's known as in the streets. Man, the things people will do for clout is amazing, while accusing others of doing the same. You got to catch those projections. In a healthy community, the community prioritizes care, truth, and repair over image management. I've had people who used to work for me get upset with me about that. Someone says something that they didn't like, they automatically wanted to kick those people out and label them with a name. That's not how we operate as humanists. We have to prioritize care, truth, and repair over just image management. Literally black academia and feminist spaces in South Africa. That is so heartbreaking to hear. In a toxic culture, negativity and aggression become normalized. In a healthy culture, trust, clarity, and responsibility become normalized. If you have a culture where anything can be said about a person and it's automatically believed, clarity doesn't exist there. You know, and just this is me. Where clarity doesn't exist, maturity is probably absent as well. Oh, that's good. I'm gonna say it one more again. One more again. Ooh, one more again. No, where clarity is not sought, maturity is probably absent. In a toxic culture, people become smaller, quieter, harder, more performative, are more cynical over time. There is a stark difference between skepticism and cynicism. And I think in a lot of ways in this community, cynicism has usurped skepticism. You know, I don't know, I'm probably going to butcher this quote, but small minds talk about people. That's enough. Enough said. You know the rest of the quote, but just right there. Anytime you're dealing with people who are spending the majority of their time talking about people, individuals, attacking individual people, especially when you know they don't even know these people because you're all just social media pundits at this moment. You don't know these people, but you feel this. Get out of here. Okay. In a healthy community. Yes. In my opinion, healthy societies allow women to thrive. Yes. That's like in a healthy community, we care about everybody in the community, children, women, older people, people who feel like they're being left behind. And in a healthy community, we're trying to make this better for all of us, not just for the loudest group of us. In a healthy community, people become clearer, steadier, more empowered, more honest, and over time, more capable. A toxic community normalizes harm. A healthy community normalizes repair. Toxic communities teach people how to survive the group. Healthy communities teach people how to participate in it without losing themselves. So if you want to strip this down to four basic diagnostic questions, if you will, when trying to figure out what type of community am I a part of, ask the question, what gets normalized? What's normal in this community? What's normal? Okay? In a toxic community, hostility, exclusion, gossip, and intimidation become ordinary. In a healthy community, respect, clarity, accountability, and repair become ordinary. After you look at what gets normalized, what gets protected? In a toxic community, status, insiders, optics, and power are protected. In a healthy community, people, truth, processes, and trust are protected. Oh, man, this is good. People equal individual nodes within nested causal systems. Each node has its particular value and effect within the system. Yes, each has its own input and output. Each is affected and affects the whole. Absolutely. Absolutely. The third one, what gets punished? So what gets normalized? What gets protected? What gets punished? In a toxic community, honesty, dissent, vulnerability, and critique are punished. You can't just say, I disagree in this community. That's so unfortunate. Well, I don't see it that way. Okay, well, you don't deserve to have a channel anymore. I don't see it that way. Well, now I'm going to tell everybody that you're this, 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 and this. I'm going to pick the most dog whistling labels I can and attach them to you. And I'm not even mad that people do that. I'm concerned that we've cultivated a whole community that responds to it. Only recognizing that it's wrong when it hits somebody that they care about. Because I know people right now who are deeply concerned about this, but were also participating in the same type of behavior not too long ago. And that's not a flex. We're all a part of the problem, which means we all have to be willing to be a part of the solution. In a healthy community, manipulation, cruelty, dishonesty, and abuse of power are challenged. Okay? And so what gets normalized, what gets protected, what gets punished, and then this is probably the most important one. This is my measuring stick. What do people become by staying there? If all the people become is dick riders, I'm not interested. There's a whole bunch of parasocial relationships of people thinking they know people that they don't know and thinking that they have favor with people that don't give a rat's ass about them, and which makes them even more disposable. And while they're investing all of their time and attention trying to gain the favor of the higher ups, their lives are falling apart. What do people become by staying there? Ooh, question. What is incentivized in our society? And given the incentives, what do we expect versus what we actually see? I definitely know that rage, I mean, we can see it in our politics right now. Our politics on all sides of the aisles is incentivizing rage. The algorithms are incentivizing rage. We have to make the decision to unplug, you know? You know? So, what do people become by staying here? In a toxic community, people become guarded, exhausted, performative, and suspicious. And a part of that is because they are so trapped in their trauma that they're expecting the next person that walks through the door to repeat the trauma. And that's real. That's real. But if the community spaces we're building aren't helping us unpack our trauma, then what are they doing to us? In a healthy community, people become grounded, they become responsible, they become connected, and they become capable. I've been fighting tooth and nail to make sure that Bridge City never becomes a personality cult. I think that's one of the reasons why it took us this long to get where we are. And I say this long, it's only been 2 years, but the first year we absolutely struggled. First year and a half, because everybody who joined only wanted to join to be close to me. And like that doesn't build a community. It doesn't. So one thing that I was adamant about, and most people know it if you've been around long enough, like, you ain't get to talk to me. Number one, I'm too busy. I got 4 kids, bro. 4 of them. Okay, 4. You know, but no, like if you're joining this community, you're joining this community to be a part of the community. Now, people who join the community to be a part of the community, they do get to talk to me, and they'll tell you it's not all that it's cracked up to be. I'm not a guru, y'all. You know, I'm not just you will be blessed. No, I'm just a person. I have no special insight on anything other than what I've been trained in. And that doesn't make me more capable than anybody else at very much of anything. Community thrives not because there is one person who is great. Community thrives because all of the people are valued. That's the only way it works. And it's not just me valuing everybody. Everybody who joins the community has to be able to value other people. Otherwise, you get something where people join and then they're all trying to protect me. And that's not a community. That's an empire under siege at that moment. I love this. All right. So toxic communities run on fear, favoritism, and unmanaged aggression. Healthy communities run on trust, accountability, and psychological safety. Toxic communities confuse loyalty with silence, while healthy communities understand that honesty is a part of belonging. If we're not giving people the freedom to honestly show up, then we really don't even know what we need to be working on. You're trapping yourself into an illusion of a world that looks more comfortable for you than the real world. And me, I prefer to live in the realest perspective of the world that I can, so that I understand how to navigate it and I understand what actually needs to happen to help. Okay? Toxic communities protect the culture from criticism. Healthy communities protect the culture through criticism. That's how we strengthen the culture, through criticism, through saying, hey, this is what we need to do better. To be able to say, hey, this is what we've been getting wrong. And any community that cannot admit what it's doing wrong, especially when it is glaringly dehumanizing, isn't worthy of the title humanist to me. Nor is it worthy of the title community. It's another C word. Rhymes with cult. Oh, yeah. So a healthy community is not one where nobody ever gets hurt. It's not one where nobody ever disagrees, nor is it one where nobody ever makes mistakes. It's one where harm is not normalized, power is not above correction, and belonging doesn't require self-erasure. A toxic community is not simply a community with problems. It's a community whose problems becomes a part of its identity. And this is where we make the change. This is where we make the change. So now that we've had this conversation, I'm not saying you have to take my red flags, but those are my red flags. The most common question I get right now is, Darante, why don't we see you in certain places? It's because I don't treat red flags like Six Flags. And in every case, I will respectfully decline to participate without feeling the need to humiliate, intimidate, or dehumanize anyone. And I wish I could say that the people that I've shown that same courtesy and that same grace had been willing to do the same, not only to me, but to others in this community, and especially someone who's likely going through one of the hardest periods of their time right now. So now that you've gotten some of these flags, think about them yourself and think about what roles you can play in actually helping us do better. Because the goal is not for us to get stuck. The goal is not for us to just get angry. The goal is for us to be upset for sure, but upset enough to do something about it that actually gives us what we need, and that is healthy communities over toxic cliques. That's what we need. Now, that's all I have. I have to change clothes because I cannot wear the Bible study with the next pastor, laugh at the Bible, and learn the Bible and laugh at the bullshit to the private school ceremony. I don't think I can do that unless I keep the jacket on. But anyway, thank y'all for hanging out with me today. Thank you for tolerating this conversation. I hope I have not offended you. And if I have, it happens. But I hope you've learned something today. And for everyone that's a member of Bridge City community, since I have begun talking about this publicly, I'll expound a little bit more on the global campus. So that way y'all are not in the dark and y'all understand what's happening in this world. All right, I love y'all. I'm going to give y'all some positive music to leave out to. Yes, it may sound kind of churchy, but listen to the words. I think it will lift your spirits or your heart or your flesh pump. I don't know. Oh, that feels like an innuendo there. All right, I love y'all. Thank y'all for hanging out with me. Until next time, keep right.
You made it through hunger, you made it through pain, you made it through drought and you made it through rain. You rose over conflict, you've conquered your shame. You've done it before and you'll do it again.
You made it through hunger, you made it through pain,
Yeah.
you made it through drought and you made it through rain. You rose over conflict, you conquered your shame.
Yeah.
You've done it before and you
Do it again. There is nothing that can ever take your place, 'cause you made it. You are one of us, this global human race. You made it here.
There is nothing that can ever take your place.
'Cause you made it here. You are one of us, this global human race. You made it here.
You made it through darkness, you made up your mind.
Yeah.
You dealt with the hardest of times.
Oh.
You're finding your joy now and learning to shine.
Oh.
Enjoying your voice and reclaiming your time.
Again, you
Made it through dark,
Yeah.
made up your mind.
Yeah, yeah.
You dealt with the hardest of times.
You'll find it.
Finding your joy,
Your joy now.
learning to shine.
Enjoy it.
Enjoying your voice and reclaiming your time.
There is nothing that can ever take your place.
You made it here.
You are one of us, this global human race.
You made it
Yeah.
here.
There is nothing that can ever take your place.
You made it here.
You are one of us, this global human race.
You made it
Yeah.
If you know that you made it, come on, stand up and say it. If you know that you made it, don't let them hold you back any longer. If you know that you made it,
Come on.
come on, stand up and say it. That you made it,
Don't let them hold you back any longer.
if you know that you made it,
Come on, say it.
come on, stand up and say it. That you made it,
Don't let them hold you back any longer. 'Cause there is nothing that can ever take your place.
'cause you made it here.
You are one of us, this global human race. Oh, there's nothing that could ever take your place. Is anybody glad that you made it?